आज के गीतमाला में दर्शन सोहता की ओर से नमस्कार, सत श्री अकाल और अदावज और आप सभी भाई बहनों का हार्दिक स्वागत करते हुए शुरू करते हैं आज का प्रोग्राम। आज फ्राइडे है और फ्राइडे का मतलब होता है फ्राइडे नाइट मनी शो इन गीतमाला। रंजीत धालीवाल जी हमेशा हमारे साथ होते हैं फ्राइडे नाइट मनी शो में, जो पूरी जानकारी आपको देते हैं। रंजीत धालीवाल जी बहुत ही सुलझे हुए, बहुत ही तजर्बेकार मॉर्टगेज ब्रोकर हैं और प्रेसिडेंट हैं क्लैरिटी फाइनेंशियल के। किसी भी तरह की मॉर्टगेज लेने से पहले आप एक बार इनसे मिलेंगे, आपका हज़ारों डॉलर का फ़ायदा करवा के देंगे रंजीत धालीवाल जी। इनका टेलीफोन नंबर आप नोट कर लें, बहुत ही पैसे बचाने वाला और बहुत ही आपके काम में आने वाला ये नंबर है 416-992-7265 416-992-7265 रंजीत धालीवाल जी का टेलीफोन नंबर है। Ranjit ji, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. Nice to be here.
How are you?
Doing great.
Okay. अब जो मॉर्टगेज की चेंजेस थी, मॉर्टगेज इंडस्ट्री की जो चेंजेस आनी थी वो आ चुकी हैं। क्या इसका अफेक्ट हुआ है? किस तरह का रिएक्शन मिल रहा है इंडस्ट्री से?
Great question to start, sir. Just to recap, basically, there has been a lot of changes to the mortgage industry, and the reaction in the industry has been interesting, to say the least. There's been a lot of confusion about the changes with the public out there, as well as the industry itself, and we've been receiving a lot of clarification notes from Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, as well as all kinds of different lenders. So three main changes were introduced initially, and then CMHC had introduced some of their own changes. So just to recap, some of those changes are, number one is that anybody who's refinancing their mortgages, they used to be able to get up to 95% of the equity out of their home. Now they can only go up to 90%. So what that means is, let's assume you have a $400,000 house, and let's say you have a $300,000 mortgage on it. Under the old rules, you could have taken out an extra $80,000 out of that.
Gee.
Well, under the new rules, you're going to be only able to take out $60,000. So up to 90% minus whatever existing mortgages are. So that's first rule. The second rule is that any rental properties, you must put at least 20% down payment on it.
Okay.
And
any investment property.
Any investment properties, any rental properties, right? And the third rule is, and that's where a lot of the confusion has been around this third rule, that the newer mortgages, especially the variable rate mortgages, have to be qualified at the 5-year posted rate. So the confusion always was, and we sort of attributed to that confusion actually as well during some of our shows in the past, because the clarification wasn't there that what is the rate going to be for that 5-year term. You're saying posted rate. Some banks have the posted rate, for example, right now today at 6.1%. Other banks have a posted rate of, let's say, 4.5%, 4.7%, something like that. So what are you going to do? So, well, Bank of Canada came up with the clarification on that, and they said, well, you know what? We know that all kinds of different lenders have different rates. And our industry, by the way, the mortgage brokers industry, we want them to use the 5-year discounted rate. And they ended up adopting the 5-year posted rate, which is 6.1%. And the Bank of Canada basically said, you know what, we're not going to listen to anybody's individual rates now. Everybody's going to use our rate. And their rates are found on the Bank of Canada website, and where we get bond yields and so on. Now they come up with what the 5-year mortgage qualifying rate is, MQR. And that rate right now is 6.1%. And that final rule is causing a little bit of headaches in the industry right now. Those individuals that could have previously qualified for a variable rate mortgage using a rate that was lower than the 5-year discounted rate even.
Oh.
Whereas now we have to use a higher rate. So some of the people may not be able to qualify for a variable rate mortgage. The CMHC, we're noticing, is getting a little bit tighter on the refinances. So they're saying, you know what, we don't believe that the value is $400,000 on this house. We're only going to give you a valuation of maybe, let's say, $380,000 or $370,000 and something like that. So it's going to be interesting going forward. We had lots of volumes over the last 2-3 weeks that the entire industry has dealt with, new applications where people were concerned that, oh, we don't know what's going to happen under the new rules. So a lot of people were buying homes and refinancing homes and all that. But over the next 2-3 weeks, we should be able to clarify again the effect of these rules and how it's going to affect our listeners directly.
All right. रंजीत जी, क्या हो रहा है इंटरेस्ट रेट्स के साथ?
Well, that's the other thing. One of the reasons why we were very busy was because of the changes in the industry, and because of the proposed changes to the HST when you're buying new homes, as well as the interest rates. Interest rates went up drastically, and we've seen the 5-year fixed rate over the last 3-4 weeks or so, and especially over the last 2 weeks, gone up by as much as 1 percentage point.
Okay.
This is the 5-year discounted rate. So that's quite a bit. The 5-year rates have gone up, and that's because we've seen a huge sell-off in the bond market. You're starting to see the money move from the bonds to the equities and so on. So demand is going down and the yields are going up. And when the yields go up, the 5-year fixed rates go up. And then also the Bank of Canada announced that the really low Bank of Canada rate and all that basically the party's coming to an end, that they're going to start increasing the variable rates, and they may not wait until July. They might do the first increase at their next announcement, which is in about 6 weeks from now.
In June?
In June. So they might,
June?
so they might actually do it in June. They might announce the first increase, and some analysts are thinking that first increase may be as high as 50 basis points.
अपना डॉलर बहुत स्ट्रांग हो रहा है, इसका इफेक्ट और नहीं पड़ेगा अपने मैन्युफैक्चरर्स?
That's something that the Bank of Canada has been concerned over the last several months, and they were talking it down. And whereas what they're starting to see right now is there's still relative strength in the Canadian economy, and those manufacturers that export a lot of items outside the country, where their goods and services were cheaper for somebody who's over from another country to buy. When the Canadian dollar is weaker, and when the Canadian dollar goes up in value, those goods and services become more expensive. So the concern always was that these manufacturers here, especially in Ontario, how are they going to cope? But one of the things that the government's numbers are showing, the wholesale numbers, the inventories and things like that, these types of numbers are showing that the industry is very resilient, that a lot of these companies have increased their productivities. They're starting to become much more competitive with their American counterparts. In other words, they do not need the subsidy of the weaker Canadian dollars in order to compete with the international companies. They're doing it already. So it seems like the Bank of Canada is not that overly concerned about the Canadian dollars. It's always been a concern of mine, especially considering that the Federal Reserve isn't making any statements as far as that they're going to start tightening up their policies and so on. So when you have the Federal Reserve, they're going to leave the interest rates the way they are, and the Bank of Canada is going to be aggressive. Yes, that should add even more pressure on the Canadian dollar. It seems like the Bank of Canada is always concerned about that, but it seems like they don't seem to be that concerned as what they were about a couple of months ago.
All right. एक commercial break ले ले?
Yes, sir. And we've got a nice special, so stay tuned, and we're going to announce a special when people come in. Oh, yeah. Okay, great. Anybody who wants to refinance, and we can still refinance your mortgages up to 90% loan to value, we will pay your legal fees if you happen to be one of the first 20 callers to call 416-992-7265. So if you have any debts lying around where you're paying off credit cards or lines of credits, even if the interest rate's low, maybe the payments are high on that, and you want to combine it into a very low payment, and you want to include it into your mortgage, we can do so. Usually when you're increasing your mortgage, there's a cost of discharging the mortgage and registering a new mortgage. So what I'm saying is that we'll cover the legal fee aspect of it. If you happen to be in one of the first 20 callers, to call me and leave me your name and contact details, call me at 416-992-7265, and I'll get back to you personally myself, and then we can take it from there to see if it makes sense for you to do this or not.
इस स्पेशल का फ़ायदा लें, अभी कॉल करें, बी वन ऑफ द 20 कॉलर्स फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, और नंबर जो कॉल करना है वह है 416-992-7265, 416-992-7265.